And his lawyer seems like he's pulling out his playbook early.
Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are two sides to every story.
For those of you who've been following along, you already know that I've been keeping a close eye on the Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony case since the very beginning. From the start, I made it my mission to dig into the truth and follow every detail. But as many of you also know, the court placed a gag order on the case, which meant that updates became scarce. There wasn't much coming out, and most of what did come out was blocked or heavily restricted. Because of that, I made the decision to step back for a while. I didn't want to waste time repeating the same recycled information or speculating when there was nothing solid to go on. So, instead, I decided to shift my focus temporarily to another missing child case that desperately needed attention. That story consumed most of my time and energy. Day after day, I was trying to uncover leads, speak to people close to the case, and follow up on tips. I was so focused on that missing child that I barely had time to look at social media or see what else was happening. But what I didn't realize, what I honestly could never have predicted, was that Karmelo Anthony's supporters were quietly preparing something far worse than anyone expected. While most of us thought this was a waiting period until trial, his followers were planning their most disgusting and disturbing attack yet. During this so-called quiet time, when everybody should have been respecting the process and waiting for justice to play out, Karmelo's fan base decided to wage war not on him being held accountable, but on the people who dared to speak the truth. Instead of waiting for the trial, instead of allowing Austin's family a chance to grieve and heal, they took things into their own hands. These people made it their daily mission to tear down Austin's family. They spread lies about Austin, about his father, and even about his brother, Hunter. They mocked and insulted them every chance they got. They went as far as swatting Austin's mother and father over and over again. Not for days. Not even for weeks. But for months. Swatting became part of their routine, something they did with cruel dedication. Every single day, their goal was to smear Austin's character, terrorize his family, and flood social media with false narratives. And if that wasn't already dark enough, these same supporters have now shifted their obsession to a completely new target. Many of you already know her name because we've talked about her here before, Sarah Fields. Sarah is a journalist who has been following this case closely, just like I have. She's done a remarkable job bringing forward details, asking the hard questions, and keeping the public informed. She's been an important source of information, and that alone has made her a target. For some reason, Karmelo's supporters cannot stand the fact that someone like Sarah is shedding light on the case. These days, when Karmelo's fans gather online, they rarely even talk about Austin anymore. They don't even talk about Karmelo half the time. Instead, their new obsession has become Sarah Fields. They spend hours, sometimes 3 or 4 hours at a time, streaming live, dissecting her life, spreading hate, and trying to intimidate her. Imagine that. An entire group of people, supposedly fighting for Karmelo, now dedicating themselves to harassing one journalist. But this isn't just trolling or name-calling online. This has escalated into something truly dangerous. As many of you already know, Sarah was pregnant. She was preparing to give birth to her child, a moment that should have been one of the happiest times in her life. But in the days, possibly even hours before she went into labor, Karmelo Anthony's supporters swatted her home. Think about that for a moment. A pregnant woman, on the edge of giving birth, suddenly forced into a life or death situation because of a cruel prank. Swatting isn't harmless. It isn't just sending police to someone's door for a laugh. Swatting is when someone makes a false emergency call, claiming there's a dangerous, life-threatening situation happening inside a home. They want the police to show up armed, prepared for violence, and in that confusion, mistakes happen. People have been shot. People have been killed. That's the whole point of swatting, to put the victim in mortal danger. Sarah posted about the incident herself. She said, "I just got swatted. I'm okay." She explained that her local police department handled the situation with professionalism and kindness, which probably saved her life. She said the officer in charge even stayed with her for about an hour to calm her down, to explain what to do if it ever happened again, and to assure her that he would finish a thorough report. But let's be clear here, the people who called in that SWAT knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted harm to come to Sarah and her unborn child. That's attempted murder. There's no other way to put it. When you send armed officers to someone's home under false pretenses, your hope is that in the chaos, tragedy strikes. This is the level that Karmelo Anthony's supporters have sunk to. And while targeting Austin's family was already repulsive, at least if you can even use that word, it had some connection to the case. They were still wrong, still cruel, but they were focused on people directly connected to Austin. Sarah, however, has nothing to do with Karmelo or Austin personally. She isn't a lawyer. She isn't a police officer. She isn't family. She's simply a journalist covering the case, just like I am. Yet these people have decided that silencing her is more important than waiting for the truth to come out in court. I can't even begin to imagine the stress Sarah must have been under. Pregnancy is already difficult. The last weeks before giving birth are filled with nerves, exhaustion, and preparation. This should have been a joyful time for her to share with her husband, her children, and her social media followers. But instead, she was forced to live in fear that any knock at the door could be a SWAT team. Things got so serious that when Sarah went into labor, the hospital actually had to increase security. They were forced to prepare for the possibility that Karmelo's supporters might show up, just as they had threatened. They had already promised to target Sarah's husband at his workplace, to follow her into the hospital, and to make her life miserable once the baby was born. Can you imagine being in labor, in one of the most vulnerable moments of your life, and knowing that people are actively trying to hurt you and your newborn? That is how far this madness has gone. Sarah's lawyer eventually spoke out. His words were strong and direct. He warned those responsible that they weren't untouchable. He promised that legal action would be swift and severe, and that anyone involved in targeting Sarah would face the consequences. And let me tell you, those words weren't empty. He made it clear that this wasn't just online drama anymore. This was criminal behavior, and charges could follow. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture here. How did things escalate to this point? A huge part of the answer comes down to influencers like Tiffany Billions and Charleston White. These are the people who go online, whip up Karmelo's supporters, and directly encourage them to target Sarah. Their live streams are filled with inflammatory comments, attacks, and threats. And followers listen. They act. They carry out those threats. That's why Sarah has become their #1 enemy. It doesn't stop there. Karmelo Anthony's father has also played a role in this madness. Despite the gag order, he's been caught sending messages, fueling hate, and even being in direct contact with Tiffany. Imagine that. A man under legal restriction, still feeding the fire that puts innocent lives at risk. For many of us who stepped back from covering the case out of respect for the gag order, this has been a wake-up call. While we waited, Karmelo's supporters used that silence as a weapon. They escalated their attacks, and now we're seeing the consequences. Which is why I've decided to speak up again. Because let's be real, how much worse can it get than swatting a pregnant woman right before she gives birth? But now, I want to share some good news. After everything Sarah went through, after all the threats, the swatting, the fear, she safely delivered her baby. On August 25th at 7:42 p.m., baby Asher Leah Ken was born. Healthy. Beautiful. Safe. Sarah shared that she and her family are now at home, adjusting to life with their new little one. She admitted that the past 48 hours were overwhelming and surreal, but in the end, she was grateful for the love and prayers she received. And I have to say this, while I am beyond relieved that Sarah and her baby are safe, I can't help but feel frustrated. Because no woman, absolutely no woman, should have to go through that kind of trauma during pregnancy. Those last weeks should have been filled with excitement, not fear. And while Sarah got her happy ending with a healthy baby, the truth is, these attacks aren't going to stop unless people are held accountable. That's where we are now. The Karmelo Anthony case has gone far beyond the courtroom. It's become about the lengths his supporters will go to in order to silence anyone who dares to speak the truth. It's about harassment, intimidation, and violence spilling over into real lives. And if this doesn't open people's eyes, I don't know what will. All of these people who spend their days attacking Sarah are nothing more than miserable, broken low lives who don't know what to do with their time. While Sarah is likely at home right now, holding her beautiful baby, soaking up those first precious moments of motherhood, these people are sitting behind screens, plotting and seething with hate. Sarah has every reason to smile. She gave birth to a healthy child, she has a loving husband, and she is surrounded by people who care for her. That's a blessing. But the sad truth is, her happiness drives them even crazier. See, normal people like you and me feel joy when we see a photo of Sarah's baby. We get that warm, glowing feeling inside when we see her family smiling. We celebrate her happiness because that's what decent human beings do. But not them. When they look at that same picture, when they see that tiny bundle of joy, they don't feel love. They feel rage. They can't stand to see someone else living in peace while they live in chaos. It eats away at them. And that's why I believe the attacks will only get worse. As Sarah and her family continue to experience joy, these unstable people will continue working behind the scenes, cooking up new ways to harass, intimidate, and threaten. It's sad, but it's the truth. Miserable people hate to see someone else thriving. Now here's the part one normally don't talk about, but it's important. Sarah is not just sitting back and letting this happen. She is fighting back. She's already taking legal action against Tiffany and Charleston White. Lawsuits are expensive, yes, but in this case, they are absolutely necessary. Because without accountability, these people will never stop. Sarah has a legal fund set up, and if you've been following her, you know where to find it. And trust me, you haven't even seen the half of it. Some of the things Tiffany and Charleston have said and done, I can't even bring myself to repeat here. It's too bizarre, too disturbing, and honestly, too disgusting. But I've seen it. I've documented it. And I know Sarah's legal team is preparing to expose it. That's why supporting her right now is so important, not just for her safety, but for her family's peace of mind and for her baby's future. I'll be honest with you. I am concerned. I worry about Sarah. I worry about her baby. I worry about her husband. Because when you watch people being attacked this viciously, day after day, you can't just sit back and pretend it's not serious. It is. And the more we speak up, the harder it becomes for these attackers to hide. So here's what I'll say, standing with Sarah means standing against hate. Supporting her means forcing these people to face the consequences of their actions. It means putting an end to the lies, the harassment, and the abuse. So if you can, go to her page, learn more, and if you feel moved, support her fight. But before you go, I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything happening to Sarah? Do you believe these attackers will ever be held accountable? Or will they continue to hide behind their screens, trying to destroy people's lives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss my next update. Because trust me, this story is far from over.